Live from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, this is Raw Politics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and this is what we have for you on the program. Europe's top job, why European leaders can't reach consensus on who should lead the EU Commission. Protests too far? As a fresh parliament begins, Brexit MEPs turned their backs during the opening ceremony. Catalonia shut out. Thousands express anger over separatist MEPs blocked from the new parliament. Raw welcome. We introduce you to the new MEPs determined to make their mark over the next 5 years. And diplomatic marathon. Emmanuel Macron sums up the never-ending summit in tonight's Raw moment. All right, it is time to meet our panelists this evening. We are joined by Nathalie Loiseau. She's a French MEP from Renew and a former French Minister for European Affairs. Nathalie, what story are you watching closely tonight?
Top jobs, of course, but also Brexit, because this is something I've been working on. But top jobs is the starting point.
Definitely.
To be able to deliver what we promised to our voters.
It's a big mystery for now. All right, and also joining us, Eva Mejdel. She's a Bulgarian MEP from the European People's Party. What about you, Eva? What are you watching?
Well, clearly top jobs. If there's nothing else on the table, nothing concrete else to discuss, it's clearly top jobs. Because I think what's really important is that we wrap up this as soon as possible in order for us, yes, to be able to actually start with the important topics.
All right, but as it stands, we don't know yet. So indeed, that's exactly where we begin tonight. The new parliament opened here today, and normally all eyes would be on Strasbourg, but tonight everyone is actually keeping a close eye on what's happening in Brussels. EU leaders gathered once again to try and agree over who should get the bloc's top job. The marathon talks began Sunday night, but were quickly suspended as some member states rebelled against Angela Merkel's plan, which would have seen Franz Timmermans elected as Commission President. And some 20 hours in a series of bilateral talks later, the leaders still failed to agree on who should be Jean-Claude Juncker's successor. All right, let's listen to what some of the leaders had to say before the summit today.
Wir werden heute mit neuer Kreativität an die Arbeit gehen. Und ich glaube, dass jeder verstehen muss, dass sich ein wenig bewegen muss. Und da sage ich jeder und jede. Und dann gibt es durchaus eine Chance. Und ich glaube, wir haben auch die Aufgabe, Ergebnisse zu finden. Und in dieser Geisteshaltung gehe ich an die Sache ran. Fröhlich und bestimmt.
Und wir haben 21 Stunden gestern gesagt, dass Herr Timmermans ist nicht die richtige Wahl für die Beziehungen zwischen die V4 und die Kommission.
He has been refused because he has defended principles and European values, and because he has defended the treaties, and this is something unacceptable for us. You cannot reject a person because he has defended the treaties and the principles and the European values that we stand for.
We have 4 top jobs, so there is no ranking which one is the most important. I want gender balance. I want for gender balance that we have 4 in these 4 top jobs where we decide as a council 2 men and 2 women.
All right, well, our Brussels correspondent Jack Barrick is joining us now from the summit. Jack, can you take us through the latest developments tonight there?
Well, I've just heard from some sources close to the meeting saying that the leaders have just broken for a short pause in their discussions. The European Council President Donald Tusk tweeted in the last 15-20 minutes or so saying, getting closer and closer, ... He's been holding a lot of bilateral meetings today. The summit was delayed and delayed as he was meeting with the individual leaders to try and see who they could get consensus behind for these top jobs. Now, the current package that we believe to be on the table is the German Defence Minister, Ursula von der Leyen, becoming the European Commission President after Franz Timmermans, the first Vice President currently, was shot down by leaders. Also then perhaps Christine Lagarde as the new President of the European Central Bank, Joseph Borrell becoming the Foreign Policy Chief of the European Union, a Spanish socialist, and finally Charles Michel, the current Liberal Prime Minister here in Belgium, to become European Council President. There is some suggestion, I've been hearing from you guys in Strasbourg, that package would not be okay for MEPs, but at the moment that looks like the one that they're working on. As with all of these discussions, and as we've seen the twists and turns of this, it could all change, Tessa.
Jack, so they're on a break now, but what happens if leaders fail to reach any agreement again tonight?
Well, then they will eventually have to reach an agreement. It's a huge issue if they don't, because the European Parliament will then go ahead. They've been sending out press releases already from the European Parliament saying that they will continue on Wednesday and select their president. At the moment, that's a nomination from the European Council, from the leaders here. But if they don't make the decision, then the Parliament needs to have a president in order to continue. And that takes one of the positions in the horse trading, in the negotiations of the leaders meeting here at the summit. It takes it off their table as an option. So at the moment, there's a lot of pressure on those leaders to get it done. If they don't manage tonight, they'll have to continue meeting, probably in the coming days, until they can get an agreement on the table. At the moment, the European Commission President needs to be voted on by MEPs when they sit on July the 15th, essentially. So there is a 2-week period, but the leaders meeting here today, they've had these marathon talks since Sunday and a previous summit already back in June. They want to get a leader and get a set of names on the table for the MEPs to be voting on.
Right, thank you for that, Jack Park, talking to us there from Brussels. It could have another long night there. So when you heard Jack saying there that the leaders are on a break, you kind of both heaved a sigh. Here we go again. All right, Quick reaction to what's happening in Brussels. It seems, I don't know, do you feel that they're actually close to a deal now?
Well, what I'm hearing is that they are working closely and forcefully for a deal. President Macron, the French president, has put a lot of energy to try to build a compromise that would satisfy the criteria that we put forward. Experience, geographical balance,
he does want the German
balance.
Defense Minister, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, as EC Commission President. That was tweeted by Emmanuel Macron and Lagarde, Christine Lagarde for the ECB, I think the names.
Right. But we'll see. Nothing is adopted until everything is adopted. So we have to make sure that all political pro-European families are satisfied, that it reflects the tendencies, the trends of our voters during the European elections. Gender balance is, of course, of the essence, because for too long the European Union was half blind and there were only men in the rooms.
So gender balance is indeed important. And another balance that kept coming up was a balance between East and West.
Right.
And this was one of the sticking points in the original summit, is that countries from Central and Eastern Europe, some of them, were disagreeing with the choice of Angela Merkel and effectively Emmanuel Macron. Why was there such a big pushback from Central and European countries? I mean, are they misunderstood? What is the feeling?
Well, first of all, I think we're moving closer to a deal by the hour, basically, which is good news, because we do not want to be ended up in a deadlock where compromise is difficult to reach. What's important is that while trying to reach a compromise, we also make sure that we select people that are actually fit for the job, experience, qualified ones, because I think the major question that we need to be led by is not who should get the job, but who are the right people to represent us in the next 5 years. What sort of Europe do we want to see in the next 5 years? More divided?
Why was there such a pushback and resistance from countries in Central Eastern Europe?
Well, I don't think I represent the country that gave any of these pushes to begin with.
So you don't understand, so you don't see the reason.
And I think what's important is it's a very delicate balance. And I think if there is an inappropriate person, this means we need to find people that are acceptable by many, exactly because we don't want to end up in the situation 5 years later to be more divided than we currently are united.
But what about the people?
And this is why the EPP has been working tirelessly as the party of consensus, as the Democratic Party, to make sure that we put forward names and personalities that are qualified and prepared.
Names? I'll put this back to Ms. Wetzel, because you talked about representing the people. So why not just follow the Spitzenkandidaten process, which would push, some would say is a more democratic process, but your party and Emmanuel Macron was not a big fan. So why not just go with that?
Well, I'm very much in favor of Spitzenkandidaten the day we have transnational lists. Until now, Manfred Weber was elected by German voters. He's a very respectable person, but only German voters picked him up.
All right.
And Frans Timmermans, it was the same with the Netherlands. They were not chosen, picked up by European citizens.
So you want
we had put this
broader
proposal on the
Okay.
table, and it was rejected by the EPP a year ago, and I do regret it, and I do hope that in the coming mandate we will be able to have this transnational list put in place.
Yeah, but the truth is that during the last mandate there was only a majority for the Spitzenkandidat process and not for the transnational lists. So, and because the mechanisms of transnational lists was actually not clear, how exactly do we do it? But we've committed, including the family of the Liberals, committed to the Spitzenkandidat process, and I think we need to, in a way, stick to it.
But the reality is that is not what we're seeing right now. And when both of you sighed when you saw that the leaders have still not come to a compromise, imagine what people who are looking at Europe doing this, imagine what they are thinking. Now, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, he talked about the struggle to reach an agreement and the message, in fact, that it is sending to the rest of the world. Let's take a look.
Notre crédibilité est profondément entachée avec ces réunions trop longues qui n'aboutissent à rien. Nous donnons une image de l'Europe qui n'est pas sérieuse. Je souhaite donc, à l'issue de ce processus, d'abord, nous prenions le temps qu'il faut pour nommer la bonne équipe, celle qui permettra d'avoir des réunions mieux préparées et d'accéder à des solutions concrètes. Mais ensuite que nous réfléchissions aussi à la simplification de nos procédures et à une avancée beaucoup plus forte, à la fois plus démocratique et plus efficace de notre fonctionnement collectif.
So isn't that the problem, that this is sending quite a bad message, a bad signal to the rest of the world?
Not only to the rest of
to
the
the
world,
Europeans.
but even
This is,
to
in fact,
the
to the voters.
Europeans. They voted for the European elections en masse. They came to the polls, quite a number of European voters decided to vote this time, but because they want us to reach results, to find solutions, not to be deadlocked, just picking up 4 people for 4 positions.
Okay, so
Yeah, but therefore I think it's actually important to mention which were the parties that actually wanted to come to a consensus, and therefore I think we at the EPP were ready at any point to find an appropriate personas that would tick all the boxes, but in the same time be able to deliver the stronger economy, be able to make us more competitive, just not in Europe, but in the world. And so that's why I think today there will be a compromise reached, and I think we've managed to make sure that we are the party of the consensus.
Is Manfred Weber out of the running then now?
I think the discussions are still ongoing. All we hear is rumors. There is some suggestions, but I think the important thing is the EPP, exactly because we want to reach a deal, we've been prepared to propose other competent people for the positions coming from the largest political family.
And who would you like to see heading the parliament then?
Well, someone who is really pro-European, who is experienced, who has a strong sense of the need to reform the European Union, because we have seen the process. It's too long, it's ineffective. People are asking questions, and rightly so. So someone who is really committed and who can have a vast majority for quite a long time.
Which could be
in
hard
this
in a fragmented parliament, though.
Well, this is different. I mean, for a long time, you had a big EPP, you had a big Social Democrat Party, and very little in between. Now, it's not that it's more fragmented. It represents the diversity of the
it's
Europeans.
Just more diverse. Okay, I'll give you a few more seconds because we're running out of time.
I think it's extremely important that actually the European Parliament president is not brokered in that deal by national governments. I think the European Parliament president should be something separate for the Parliament to decide itself.
All right. Okay. As we said earlier, today is the first day of the new European Parliament. An official ceremony was held this morning, complete with a traditional performance of the European anthem. But Brexit Party MEPs stole the spotlight to express their views on the EU. Let us take a look. And they were not the only British politicians to grab the headlines. Pro-EU Liberal Democrat MEPs turned up wearing bright yellow T-shirts emblazoned with their party's not so subtle and arguably offensive slogan. All right, now this story is attracting a lot of attention, in fact, on social media. So let's go straight to Alex Morgan in the Cube for this story. Alex.
Tessa, in the world of social media, these stunts turning your back for Brexit or wearing a T-shirt saying rude words to Brexit, they're designed to get attention, aren't they? It's not the first time we've seen people turn their backs. UKIP, the party of UK independence, Nigel Farage's former party, did turn their backs. But this time round, there's a sense that pro-Brexit and anti-Brexit really were making the most of this first day of the Parliament. And, well, Ben Habib, one of the Brexit MEPs of this newly formed Brexit party, says, explain on Twitter why he turned his back, saying here, you'll be pleased to know we turned our backs. Not everyone was pleased to know, fair to say. The EU is not a state. This was the argument of the Brexit party. They respect national anthems. They say the EU is not a state. It shouldn't have an anthem. Therefore, they're going to turn their backs to it. And indeed, it wasn't just the back turning as well. Alexandra Phillips calls herself Brexit Alex. Well, she stood up and waved the union flag, getting told off by Antonio Tajani, the president of the parliament. And in fact, in this tweet, she's making light of that. So it's fair to say the Brexit party wanted to make themselves heard today. But were they being disrespectful? Well, speaking to Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, Nigel Farage, their leader, had this to say.
Is it disrespectful? I mean, ultimately, you know,
is it disrespectful?
It is a democratic institution.
Is it disrespectful to take the ancient nation states of Europe and without asking anybody turn this place, which started off as a free trade club or supposedly a free trade club, into a nation? It's very disrespectful indeed.
So that was Nigel Farage's take on it.
What
What about the Liberal Democrats then? What was their take on all this and what were they up to? Well, this is the polite side of the T-shirt. The other side says that rude word to Brexit. Stop Brexit was on the front. And indeed, staying with the pictures, Guy Verhofstadt tweeted what he had to see, obviously the leader of the Liberals in the Parliament, saying he was proud of that. But look, one thing that's really interesting is the international response to all this. The German Foreign Office trolling the Brexit party, saying, oh, maybe they just don't like Beethoven. They're making light of it. But others see both the Liberal Democrats and the Brexit Party coarsening the national dialogue. Look what Kevin Maguire, a newspaper editor and a commentator in the UK, he says both of them are making Britain look like a country of rude morons. And other people as well. James Cleverly of the Brexit secretary in the UK, one of the Brexit ministers, I should say, sorry, saying here the Brexit Party and the Lib Dems, he says here, did they both have the grown-ups need not apply on the candidate selection? So both parties coming under fire for their respective stunts, but they're getting the traction. And here we are talking about it tonight.
Indeed, we are. Right. Thank you for that, Alex and our team in the Cube. And with us here in the studio to talk about this, Alexandra Phillips, one of the Brexit Party MEPs who turned their backs today, and our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Alexandra, so why? Why do that? I mean, what does it achieve at the end of the day? A few headlines? I mean...
Well, do you know what it does achieve? Is most of the time the UK media has no interest in what goes on here. It's massively underreported. People have no idea that there's processes going on, like voting for the next president of the European Parliament, what that means, who the decision makers are. And doing these things which involve optics actually steers attention to this institution. And on some level, perhaps they should be grateful for that if they want to be more open and democratic, and actually stand up and go, OK, there's scrutiny now being paid. They might not have liked it, but it wasn't harmful.
But you didn't get the reaction that you want. I mean, you saw the reaction, first of all, from Mr. Tajani, Antonio Tajani of the Parliament.
He had a small smile on his face.
But also,
he was OK. He was OK. I think he has a sense of humour. Look, when it comes to a matter of respect, it's an age-old tradition to do things like that. It's a peaceful protest. The point is, we've been waiting for 3 years now for the result of our democratic referendum to be respected. It's not. We weren't throwing projectiles, we weren't using rude words, we certainly weren't wearing gimmicky T-shirts with swear words on the back. It was a small, simple, visual show of how we feel. A stunt, yeah. A show, it's a symbolic representation of how we feel to still be part of an institution that the British people voted to leave.
Do you think? I mean, we have seen stunts before, but do you think this is different now because it has to do with Brexit and
I think it's a reminder that
feelings towards the European Union.
This is not the first time that Nigel Farage and his previous guys as UKIP leader did exactly the same back in 2014. It grabbed headlines there. It is a stunt. It's clearly a stunt because at the moment the debate in the United Kingdom is so heated, and we saw this with the Liberal Democrats with their T-shirts today. Everyone is trying to grab attention, not least of all during a Conservative leadership party race which is dominating the headlines in the UK. I mean, the question is, I think it's up to viewers at home to decide whether they think it is undignified or indeed whether it is disrespectful to the European Union. But ultimately, I suppose the question is, what does it actually achieve?
Exactly.
I mean, beyond getting newspaper headlines, which for a political party might be important, in the grand scheme of things, what does it achieve? Does it enhance Britain's reputation abroad? I'm not entirely sure it does.
See, my argument would be actually we run a very big risk of, because this process of actually extracting ourselves from this institution is taking such a long time, people might start to get complacent.
It must be said mostly because of the UK Parliament and not this one.
Look, I agree with that, and perhaps it's also sending a message back at home, because a lot of the people who picked up and commented were in fact Conservative MPs using it themselves to score points against the Brexit party. The point is, it was the first day out of the blocks. It was a visual, symbolic statement to say we haven't forgotten about the 17.4 million who feel that the backs of the political class have been turned on them. I mean, look, like I said, no harm was actually done. It sparked a debate, and debate is always a good thing.
But isn't the big question is that you guys might be here for, what, 4 or 5 months?
We're hoping.
Is it worth
potentially,
it?
But is this essentially what we're now just going to see for like 4 or 5 months?
No, it's not. Look, this is like you said, Nigel did this back in 2014. First day out, it was a visual representation, a symbolic gesture of saying to the 17.4 million, we're with you. OK? It's not meant to be offensive to other European nations, to our colleagues. It's a mere symbolic representation of what we stand for. And actually, there's a lot of hard work to be done, and we've got amazing MEPs who have just come out of a 3-hour-long meeting with all of them, who really want to get down to business.
I think I think what is interesting is that actually what this will do is reinforce in many MEPs' minds, and I think there has been a sea change, Tessa, over the last year or so, where many who kind of felt quite sympathetic to kind of the Remain argument in Britain and potentially wanted to see the referendum change are now sick to the back teeth of Brexit. They do not want to see parliamentary proceedings and press coverage dominated by this. And actually, they saw the backs of Brexit MEPs today. They'll be glad to see the backs of them when they leave.
Do you think, though? Sorry, do you think that this is going to be how we're going to see Parliament, new voices or protests being shown?
Yeah, and I think in some parts, many would say actually what the European Parliament needs is a kind of a bit of livening up and an expression of how people felt, and we saw that with Catalonia today as well. But at the same time, you know, this is a divided parliament, but it is also a parliament that has to achieve things. It does have to function. Ultimately, it is meant to be there, and as is Alex as well, it is meant to be there to represent their constituents and work in the best interests of them, rather than some would say just kind of stunts to get newspaper headlines.
All right, well, do join in this conversation, because this will continue after the program Raw Politics, so it'll be on your call. What do you think? Do you think British MEPs went a little too far with their protests? So do join us. Call in later. Darren is going to be hosting that show. All right, coming up on Raw Politics, another revolt in Strasbourg. Catalan protesters gather in the thousands outside the European Parliament. Plus, things may have gotten awkward for Ivanka Trump at the G20, but were there political motivations behind the leak of that now viral moment? That is coming up. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Well, it may be the first day of a brand new parliament here in Strasbourg, but it certainly hasn't been plain sailing. And for those starry-eyed new arrivals, some old issues do die hard. Among them, the question of Catalonia. Well, traveling by all means possible, thousands of Catalans flooded into Strasbourg this morning in revolt against the exclusion of 3 of their MEPs, blocked from taking their seats by Spain's electoral board and after their involvement in the Catalan independence movement. The protesters labeled the move repressive and called on the new parliament to find a solution.
Para protestar por no solamente el acoso antidemocrático y la represión del Estado español, sino para que Europa se dé cuenta de lo que estamos sufriendo allá y de que tome medidas para no.
All right. Unfortunately, we lost that. Our correspondent, Maeve McMahon, spent the day with them, and she is joining us now live. Maeve, so can you tell us what is the background to what was happening today and what has been the response, really?
Well, Tessa, this is the second time we see so many Catalans protest en masse and put this pressure on the European institutions. They were in Brussels back in 2017, and today 10,000 of them, according to the local police here in Strasbourg, were out on the streets of Strasbourg today. They were outside the European Parliament this morning from 7 o'clock in the morning until 1 o'clock, drawing attention to the fact that 3 MEPs that they voted for, like Carles Puigdemont and Oriol Junqueras, could not take up their seats today in the European Parliament. They told me over 2 million people voted for those 3 MEPs. They said they're disappointed in Europe, they're disappointed in the institutions, and they're looking for solidarity. And it wasn't just people that came here today from Catalonia. There was also members of the Catalan government, like Alfred Bosch, who's the Foreign Affairs Minister. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. Well, as you can see there, Alfred Bosch really wants to make this a European problem as opposed to just a Catalan issue. But apart from groups like the far left in the European Parliament and the Green group in the Parliament, very few political parties, and over in the European Commission, very few people want to really meddle in this affair. They really want to leave it over to Spain. But that's making a lot of Catalans that I've been speaking to today in Strasbourg very, very disappointed. But as you can see now, they're in the city centre of Strasbourg. Their activism is put to the side for now, and they're dancing and chanting here in the Plaza de Catedral in Strasbourg city centre.
Correspondent Maeve McBath, she's been covering this story the entire day, in fact, but also inside the plenary here there was some commotion as one MEP tried to bring attention to the issue. Let's take a look.
People voted for them freely, free European citizens voting for free European representatives. And now the terrible contradiction is that they can't come here to represent their voters. So we think this is no longer an internal Spanish affair, this is a European affair.
All right, that was the Spanish Foreign Minister. But let's go back to that clip I was talking to you about in the plenary today, where there was a bit of a commotion on the same issue.
But unfortunately, some elected MEPs have been denied access to this House. 3 representatives of the Catalan people have been denied representation in this House. This House needs to stand up for democracy, needs to stand up for human rights. If this House doesn't value the votes of the people of Catalonia, then the credibility of this House itself will be undermined.
Well, that was Matt Carthy there, an Irish MEP from the GUE NGL group, and he is joining us right now in the studio. And back with us, Nathalie Loiseau, French MEP from the Renew Party. All right, Matt, first, why did you feel the need to do that, what you did today?
Because I value the fact that people voted for me. I don't believe that the people who voted for me have any more rights than those who voted for any other MEP. There are lots of MEPs who I disagree with politically, but I don't and cannot countenance a situation whereby administrative rules are changed with just one purpose, and that's to deny some voters the right to have their MEP represented here in the European Parliament.
Do you acknowledge that there are rules, that the reason why they can't take the post here is because Puigdemont, for example, has to go back to Spain, and that's the rule?
The rule was changed with one specific purpose, and that was so that these Catalan MEPs wouldn't be in a position to take their seats. So I think what your viewers this evening need to ask themselves, if we tolerate this situation where the Spanish government can change the rules just to deny some MEPs the right to respect their own democratic mandate, what's to stop other governments doing the same? What's to stop other governments by introducing administrative or legal barriers to preventing MEPs to take their seats?
We're still waiting for
the truth of the matter is over 2 million people voted for MEPs.
Okay.
Those 2 million people are being denied their rights to be represented here in the European Parliament, and to me that's just not acceptable.
Natalie, you were shaking your head. You clearly disagree. Why?
To me, there is one value which is extremely important for all of us in the European Union and which we should fight for, and this is rule of law. We are European member states where rule of law is key. And if there are legal measures, they have to be respected. if there is a legal procedure, a judiciary procedure regarding some people, whether they are MEPs or not, doesn't make a change.
So I'll flip the question and ask it to you. When Matt was saying where 2 million people voted and their voice should be respected, it was a democratic process. So what message does it send? And this is, this is not exactly a good kind of message. So how would you respond to that?
Well, I fully respect voters, but I don't want to see a domestic problem, which is the problem of Catalonia in Spain, exported to the European Union as well.
But this is now a European issue. You ask what message does it send? It sends a message that within the EU leadership there are a load of hypocrites. Because if this situation was happening in South America or the Middle East, where elected representatives were being denied through administrative technicalities the right to sit in the parliament to which they were elected, the European Union would be up in arms. The silence instead of European leaders has been deafening and in my view shameful.
Are you asking the European Parliament to veto whatever national rule?
I'm asking the European Parliament must respect the rights of citizens. The European Parliament spent tens of millions of euro on a campaign called This Time I'm Voting. Well, this time over 2 million people voted for MEPs who are not allowed to take their seats. As long as that situation continues to happen, well, then there will be a cloud hanging over the right of this Parliament to lecture anybody else about democracy, about human rights, about rule of law. Because the truth of the matter is that the rule of law that you talk about, it has been subverted for political ends in order to deny some people the right to be represented here in the European Parliament, simply because the Spanish government doesn't like their politics. That's not acceptable.
I cannot agree with you, because this is your opinion. You're entitled to have it. But I'm sorry, the Spanish government is a democratic government. How can we say to Hungary, to Romania, to Poland that we value the rule of law, and all of a sudden change our minds because we have political preferences regarding Catalonia? I don't agree with that. If we want to be serious about rule of law, and we have to, because we are a democratic, respectful European Union, we have to value rule of law everywhere.
You can't say you value democracy and rule of law and then allow a situation where a member state government subverts the rule of law.
No, this is an opinion.
In the face of democracy
so you don't
to prevent for
subverting
MEPs to take their seats. These MEPs were elected. The only people who get to decide who sits in the European Parliament, it's not the Spanish government, it's not the European Parliament.
But
it's not me or Natalie. It's the people get to decide. The people chose their elected representatives,
but is that
and
your
they have the right to
interpretation of why the law was changed? I mean, as
of course,
that's an interpretation. I'm sorry. They faced the judiciary.
The Spanish government tried to prevent them from standing for elections in the first place.
Mr. Puigdemont escaped from Spain and from the judiciary at the same time. You cannot only say that he was elected by people. He has been escaping his own country.
What is he escaping from? From a trumped-up political charge. He
No.
is charged with the act of holding a vote, holding a referendum. That is what
in
the European Union today, we think it is okay for politicians to be locked in jail or to be threatened with imprisonment for allowing citizens the right to vote. Like, seriously, how can we turn to the South American countries or to African countries or to the Middle East and say you must respect democracy while this is happening within our own borders?
Democracy is respecting people being allowed to say what they think. So please let me just a few minutes. The vote which was organized, the so-called referendum, there was no monitoring. It was against the Constitution. We don't know the list of voters. We don't know how the vote took place. We don't know how the results were chosen. So come on, if we are serious about democracy, let's be serious about democracy.
For now, we're waiting final decision.
We know what happened in the European elections. 3 MEPs were elected, and unfortunately some MEPs are now happy to see those people not being allowed to take their seats.
So clearly, as you were saying, this is an issue that really, it's an old issue that dies hard. It's not going to die very soon. All right, let's move on though, because we have all been there. You're at a social gathering and you awkwardly try to insert yourself into a conversation, but the chances are you've probably not done it at a meeting of world leaders. So let's take a look at Ivanka Trump's appearance at the G20.
Yes, but this is more social justice. And
it's all, yeah.
As soon as you start talking about the economic aspect of it, though, a lot of people start listening who wouldn't otherwise listen.
And the same with the defense side of it. In terms of the whole sort of ecosystem. It's been very male-dominated.
Viral, and I asked you, Natalie, because it was released by the Élysée on Instagram. I mean, we're asking, was there political motivation in releasing this? I mean, this is really embarrassing.
No, there were several pieces which were broadcast by the Élysée, and not that only one. But indeed, it raises questions. We have rules, for instance, in France, when you are a member of the parliament or where you are a member of the cabinet, you cannot hire neither your husband or wife nor your children working with you. It's a little weird.
Do you think there was a political message there? I don't know.
No.
Or just
I can imagine
everybody.
why it became viral.
Sure.
Because it raises a question.
Absolutely. Okay.
Who are you if you're the son or the daughter
to be attending
such an international meeting?
All right, we'll leave it there. Coming up on Raw Politics, we launch our new series, The Raw Welcome, and introduce you to a Hungarian woman who left her medical career to become an MEP. That's coming up next. Welcome back to Raw Politics, live from the European Parliament, where today Europe's newly elected MEPs are taking their seats for the very first time. Now, over the next few weeks, we'll be introducing you to some of the new faces while introducing them to some of the best spots in their new home away from home. It's a special Raw Welcome. Let's take a look. Meet Katalin Shep, a doctor and health economist back in Hungary, now one of the newest MEPs in Brussels and a fresh face to watch. It was from a dorm room back in Hungary that she helped create the progressive momentum movement, standing up to Prime Minister Viktor Orban and facing attacks in the Hungarian media for it. Expectations are high for Ms. Shep. At 31 years old, she is already a vice president in the Renew political group and ready to make her mark in the European capital. Katalin, it's so good to see you.
Hello, good to see you.
Welcome to Brussels. And what are your first impressions?
Well, it's my dream to be here, so of course I love the city already, but I have to find my favorite spots to hang out in the next 5 years.
And this is a special week because it's really hot this week. It's not normally like this, but okay, let's go to one of the best spots in the city. I really like this area, but let's scoot over. Let's go for it. All right. Oops, sorry. So, do you like this park? Welcome.
It's beautiful here. I think it will be a very exciting 5 years of discovering this city and
absolutely. It's one of the spots, like this one would come up only in the summer, so enjoy it while it lasts. All right, so your background is really interesting because you're a medical doctor as well and a health economist. Why the change? Why become a politician?
Well, the thing is that I had a first-hand experience in the Hungarian healthcare sector when I was working in the hospital, mostly as a junior doctor, but also during school. And I just felt that the system is not working and the state is not being run at an efficient manner. I started to very much disagree with the ways our government is taking public affairs, how it's not really representing us young people, young European-minded people. So we came to this conclusion with my friends that nobody represents us, so we should do our own party.
Hungary has been in the headlines a lot with Viktor Orban as the image that, especially here in Brussels, that we imagine. He's the opposite of you, you're the opposite of him, you're a woman, you're young, and you have very liberal, progressive ideas, and you're very critical of Viktor Orban. Is it difficult to have your kind of thinking in a country like yours where here people think he's increasingly authoritarian?
I think, yes, you have to work harder, you have to be more fierce, you have to be more strong on your visions if you are a young, progressive woman in Hungary. But that's the mission we have to undertake.
And there are a lot of criticism, obviously, on the media in Hungary. And, we've been hearing that you've been criticized. How does that make you feel?
I feel that my ideas actually make an impact. because they are afraid of us. They are afraid of my party, they are afraid of the young generation in politics. They are afraid of people who have a vision, who aren't corrupted, who cannot be bought for money, because we actually dare to say the truth, and they are afraid that we are here in this park. I'm talking to Euronews, and I can bring the word out to the whole wide world that is happening in Hungary. That's not right, and we have to stop that kind of practice within the European Union.
What kind of politician will you be? Will you engage with people that you might completely disagree with, or do you think that is legitimizing their position? How would you interact with other people that you might not agree with?
I think this job is not about me. This job is about those who I represent. And I think one thing that my voters demand from me is respect towards the job that I have and respect to my fellow MEP colleagues. However, I might not share their views, but I know, being a Hungarian politician, that how it feels when you are not being respected, when you are not being talked to. I think it's the basis that we have to be open to dialogue and discourse and debate.
Any ideas which of the dossiers or the subject matters that are in Parliament that you want to be leading and spearheading?
I think that we need to do a lot for cohesion against corruption, but also when it comes to innovation and science and research. I think these are like extremely important topics that I also have a good background on. But you can also expect to hear my voice when it comes to breaches of the rule of law, or when it comes to the fight against corruption, fairness, open society, women's rights. So much to do.
Thank you very much. Katalin Schiff from the Hungarian Momentum Party with me here in this beautiful... It's my favorite park, actually. I hope you...
It will be my favorite park as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And here with me in the studio is another brand new MEP, Ville Niinisto, a Finnish MEP from the Greens EFA group and former Minister of Environment for Finland. And still with us, Matt Carthy, Irish MEP from the GUE NGL group. All right, Ville, so you're a new MEP. Any expectations you have being part of the European Parliament? It's going to be different from your old job.
Well, yeah, it's a new experiment for me to be here physically, but also the politics is something I know, and having been in the council working with environmental issues, I think there is a momentum now that the Greens took part in the elections, that we actually got a lot of support for climate policies and social justice in the elections.
Do you have any apprehensions, in hearing of all the talk of fragmentation of this new parliament?
The big powers that used to, share the power between themselves, that is the Conservatives and Socialists, they talk about fragmentation, but I think what population want is new kind of politics, that there is still visions in Europe, that we move forward and not just, haggle between party leaders about power.
And Matt, any words of wisdom or advice to new MEPs from your experience?
Figure your way around this building for a start. That's going to take you the first year, because it is like the European Union itself. It is designed to be complicated and very easy to get lost in.
Oh, there you go.
Stick true to the reasons you got elected.
So if you can physically go around, you'll manage the politics.
You have a big job of work done.
Then you'll manage the politics. All right, coming up on Our Politics. Earlier we saw Brexit Party MEPs turn their backs during the EU anthem, and we want to know, have British MEPs gone too far with that? We want to hear from you. Your call is coming up at 7 p.m. CET, this local time. The contact information is on your screen now, so you can call us. It's a free number, 00800 3333 7002, or get in touch using the hashtag #RawPolitics. Our lines are opening soon after the break. Welcome back to Raw Politics. Now it's almost time to hear from you. So after this program, we will have your call at 7 p.m. CET. And Darren McCaffrey, our political editor, is hosting that Your Call program. And he will be joined by Ville Niinisto, a Green MEP from Finland. And as usual, every night we ask our audience 3 questions. Right, Darren? So what are we asking them tonight?
We do indeed. And we've got an eclectic mix tonight, from those kind of Brexit protesters in Parliament through to migrants, and whether smoking should be banned in Europe. Let's have a look at tonight's Hot Topics.
A ceremony to mark the opening of the new European Parliament session. For some, a cause for celebration. For others, not so much. Nigel Farage's Brexit Party MEPs turn their backs as the European anthem rings out. And they're not the only ones making a splash. Pro-Remain Liberal Democrat MEPs don bright yellow t-shirts featuring their foul-mouthed slogan, "Remain or leave aside." Are they disrespecting the EU institutions? We're asking, have British MEPs gone too far? Under arrest. The captain of a migrant rescue ship is arrested by Italian police after docking without authorization in the port of Lampedusa. Italy has cracked down on migrant arrivals over recent weeks, banning NGO rescue ships from its ports. The Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini says he'll only let boats dock if other EU countries agree to accept the migrants. But as the UN says that no vessel should be fined for saving lives at sea, we want to know, do countries have the right to deny migrant rescue boats? And stub it out. Sweden is opening up a new front in its war on smokers. It's been illegal to light up in bars and restaurants since 2005. But now the Scandinavian nation has brought in a ban on smoking in public spaces, such as playgrounds and at railway station platforms. The goal is to make Sweden smoke-free by 2025. So should other countries follow Stockholm's lead? We're asking, should Europe go smoke-free? Come on, Europe, get involved in the debate. Have British MEPs gone too far? Do countries have the right to deny migrant rescue boats? And should Europe go smoke-free?
In a couple of minutes, and you know what to do. We want to hear from you, so pick up the phone. It is free. 00800 333 3702, the usual number to get in touch with us. You can also email us at rawpaul@euronews.com. We'd love to see you on Skype. Find us using the handle Raw Politics, or indeed on Facebook or Twitter, use the hashtag Raw Politics and get involved.
Indeed, and earlier we were having that discussion about what just happened in the plenary today with the British MEPs, so Brexit Party and the Lib Dems. What do you think about that? Do you think British MEPs have gone too far, or is this a way of getting attention for an issue? Have they gone too far?
Basically, as a Green politician, I'm all for having a right to protest, but there is a quality to the protest, that whether it's respectful or not. And I would say that those who are patriotic and not nationalistic, they usually, if we discuss about Brexit and what relation you should have towards the EU, many people say that we have nothing against the EU. We want to have cordial.
This is disrespectful?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
If you want to have cordial relations, you don't turn your back on any country's anthem. Why should you do it in the European Parliament?
Back it out to this, though. I mean, what are anthems and flags anyway? They're just made-up symbols, but they are, though. But why would you be disrespected by a kind of a flag that, okay, you might identify with?
And you were talking about it's an institution, not really a
well, I mean, you know, the argument, of course, from Brexit MEPs and Nigel Farage when I interviewed earlier on, making clear that, yeah, the EU is an institution, not a country.
Don't forget, join this conversation in just a few moments with Darren and Vila there. Okay, before we go, tonight's Raw Moment, let's turn back to the ongoing saga over the EU's top jobs. It's still continuing because it looks like all those summits are taking their toll on France's Emmanuel Macron. Let's watch.
I have a feeling that I agree with you.
No doubt. Good, very good.
True, it's
what
true.
are we into day 3?
Like, we don't see you anymore, Darren, when you were in that summit. You disappeared.
Day 3. I mean, are they going to sort this out before, I don't know, the UK leaves at the end of October?
Well, everything is prolonged at the moment, so I'm not sure what happens. But as in the Brexit discussions in the British Parliament, it's a chaos also in the Council now.
It's pretty chaotic.
I know, and it just
could be a very long summer.
Absolutely. Okay, we would love to hear from you as always, so do stick around after the program. Remember, use the hashtag RawPolitics. Thank you for joining us tonight, and stick around.